So we now come to the end of the recreation of this website. This site is css.com. So far we have added tags for our navigation bar, our page header, our content for services and for the blog, the story, the contact info, and the page footer. These are all simple tags that just delineate the space for the elements in the page to use. However, some of them have more than one column to them, like the products one has a video and then it's got some additional text. Our services only has the text on the left and it uses some sort of a background for the right, so this is actually just one column. We have the blog that's got two columns, another video and text mixture, another double text, and then finally the footer. We will not be splitting the footer for this demonstration. So let's see, let's start at the top. Navigation is still just the one bar. The next one, the header, is just one slab of text. Next there's going to be the product section. Let me bring back my recipe and pull up Dreamweaver. This looks like it's split in half. So rather than measuring them again, I'm just going to make an assumption that the space is going to be split in half and that section products will actually be able to host both of them using half of the space allotted. Currently it's at 1170 W by 600. The products, let me go into the recipe, add some space here, and for that class we have video and then we have text. I'm going to call one section, or rather there will be a class and it will be called products video, and it'll be 1170 divided by 2. And having done the math before recording, it was 585 was the result, so it's 585 W for width by the same height. The height will not be changing on this, we'll just say 600 height again. The next one's going to be the products text on the side. I'll call that products text. And it's going to be the same dimension since it's big split just right down the middle, sharing the space. 600 height. Next we'll have the services, which like I said previously is just a one column, and then there's the background image that we could add later. So let me measure inside of services the space that this one item would take. I'll bring back the cropper tool and measure from the left and go and see what would be a comfortable width for this. Looks like 600 pixels more or less would be enough. So we can end up with a square box here for our services text. Services text, and we said 600 width by 600 height. Next we'll measure, see what we got on the blog. This blog looks like would it go to 600 as well, or would it 585 being the halfway point fit? I don't think so. So I'll just go actually a little bit farther out and say that this could be 625 or so. I'll just leave it at that. Services and inside the blog. I'll call this blog content and say 625 width by the same height. Next to that we have the previous items. We'll say blog previous, and actually it's going to be 1170 minus 625, which turns out to be 545 width by 810 height. Next, the story is going to be split in half since we have that video as well. We're going to use the same dimensions as before, that 585 by 600. So let's call this story video will be 585 by 600. And the story text will be 585, not 582 as I just typed. I correct that now. 585 width by 600 height. Now we have the contact, and the contact has different looking widths to their column. I'm just going to borrow some of the measurements that I used before as well. That's 625 by 810 would work for now. If we need to correct it later, we could do it later. But just for the sake of saving time and finishing up this series of videos, I'm going to just copy that text and make sure that I know that this is going to be not the blog content, but rather the contact text. And then the next one could be the contact resources. Okay, I'll move my tool out of the way and we'll go back to Dreamweaver. What we're going to do now is to insert classes that will split the columns that we have already. So section products would be our first one. Now we have two classes. One will be 585. Actually, both of them will be 585 by 600. Since the classes themselves will be the content for the ID section products, I'm going to highlight that and delete it. I've had to switch computers since I started the series, so let me bring back my insert bar, get the insert and put it up here on top so I can see it a little bit better. My insertion point is already inside the section products, and let's get in here a new article, and at the insertion point give it the class products video. Out of the way, and I'll click OK. Also, I want to see my CSS Designer. Something tricky about Dreamweaver is that when you start to insert more tags inside some of the other tags, it will not give you the opportunity to just click on article and rather than insertion point say after the tag that we just put in, that class is not available. So we can't say insert it after the class products video. I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to call up the code and see what's going on. I have the section products ID. This is the class that I just inserted. So I'm going to go to the end of the class, the end of line 13, and enter and press enter so that I'm at the next line. Now I can insert a new article at that point, at the insertion point, and that new class will be called products text. Just going to copy that and paste it. I'll click OK. The class is inserted into the code. Let me go back to design, and I see that the products video and the products text are both inside the section products. I know that because if I were to click on products text, the tag handler at the bottom would tell me that there's a class called products text that's inside the article. I'll follow next to the section services. Let's see, section services right here. This is the one that's got just the text and then a background. This would be a little easier because we just need to replace the content with the one article. I'm going to delete that. Insert an article at the insertion point and call it services text. Copy that and put it in class. I'll click OK. Section blog is next. This is one of the ones that's split, and we have those measurements. Section blog is 625 by 810. I'm going to highlight section blog, delete the dummy text, insert a new article, and that'll be the blog content, and click OK. And next I'm going to split so that I can see both the code and the design. Go to the end of the tag that we just inserted on line 20, at least it's my line 20. In line 21 I'm going to insert a new article class for the blog previews. Insert article at the insertion point, call it blog previews. Click OK. Next there's going to be the section story. Go back to design. Section story goes here. I'll delete that dummy text and story video will be inserted as a class. Story video, click OK. I'll go back to the code, find the end of the article, and insert story text. Could I have stayed inside the code all the time and just do this step by step without having to go back and forth? Yes, I could have. I just wanted you to be able to see the design process as it goes along. Do it whatever way works for you best. Either one of these techniques is acceptable. In the end, all that really matters is that the code is set. I just want to take advantage of Dreamweaver's what you see is what you get capabilities as much as possible. Okay, section contact is our last one. And let's do this one in code like I was just mentioning. So section contact, rather than going all the way to the end, I'm going to highlight section contact dummy text. That content for section contact goes here. I'm going to press enter to delete it, and it also gives me that new space. I can then give it one more line and tab into the code. So now we have contact text to add. I'll copy that name, insert a new article, give it the class contact text, click OK. After that article, press enter again and insert our last article, which is contact resources. Click OK. So I go back to design and I see that the same thing has been done for this. We have flattened content inside of our tags, which is fine because next we're going to be adding all the numbers that are going to split and give us a sense of what the site looks like. I'm going to start with the section products. Section products, the products video goes here. Click on that, find it on my let me move this out of the way. I'll find it on the tag selector at the bottom. Click on products video. Go to my CSS Designer and add a new selector. Click on the plus next to selector. This is going to be a class called products video that's inside the ID section products. I'll press enter. To accept it, I'll bring back my measurements in my recipe. This is going to be 585 by 600. And as I said previously, I had to switch computers. I had to reinstall Dreamweaver. I'm going to click on the show set so that I can see my properties properly. And on the width, I'll give it in pixels 585. And on height, I'll give it 600. Products text is next. I'll find products text, which is actually below the one we just put in. Products text appears on my ID selector. I will add a new selector that will be products text. And since we're splitting it down the middle, the width will be the same as the previous one. It will be 585 and the height will be the same, 600 pixels. So now my products text is actually appearing below the products video, and something that needs to be happening now that maybe we could have started with before is that all of these elements need to be floating left. So let's start out with the Navbar and find the float left in the properties. I'll float that left. Page header, I will float it left as well. Section products will float left. Products video will float left. Products text will float left. By this point, you'll see that everything is actually going to start to get right next to each other because of the float left property. Let me get this again here and go to my section services and do the float left as well. I'll go to section services and float it left. Blog, floated left, story, floated left, contact, same thing, etc. until we get to the footer. Okay. Next in section services, we have the services text. This is the one that stands on its own. So it's 600 by 600. So I'll find my services text and add that new selector. I'll float it to the left and then give it the width of 600 pixels. This will also take a 600 pixel height. We go below to the blog content, click on that and select it in the tag selector. Add a new selector for that. There's a blog content class. This blog content will have, let me put this over here, 625 width in pixels. So let's do 625. Height is 810. The blog previous follows. Blog previous, highlighted, add the selector, and that's 545 by 810. By 810. Go below. Blog content and blog previews are not playing nice with each other. Is this one floating left? Probably not. So let's float it left. And blog content do the same. And then they're next to each other. On story video, that's inside of story. I'm going to click on that, find it in my tag selector, add a new selector, press enter to accept, make sure that it floats left, and give it the width of 585 in pixels and the height of 600. Story text is next. It appears to the right. Add that as a new selector. Story text class. Make sure that this also floats to the left, and then give it the width of 585 in pixels. Height is 600. We have contact text. Contact text is 625 by 810. I'll click on the design for contact text, then on the tag selector, add that selector. There's contact text. Going to give it that width that I just mentioned, 625 in pixels, and 600 height. Make sure that it's floating to the left. Contact resources. Over here, I'll click on the name, then the tag selector, add it to the classes, float it to the left, and our final measurement is 545 width in pixels, 625, and a height of 810. .545 by 810. Make sure that it too floats to the left, and it does. And my design looks a little funky because I think that I put in the wrong height for one of these. Let me see, got contact resources that I just put in, it's at 810, but contact text is at 600. So they both need to be at 810. I'll correct that and put it at 810. Let me move my recipe that way. Let me minimize the CSS Designer, and now I see that my page recreation, at least just the settings, at least just the structure has been replicated. I can start to fill this in with content and images and everything that I want to fill in. Just to make sure that I know what I'm dealing with, I'll call this vesis.com, and this document at the bottom in properties, I'll have the document title, untitled document, and say this is site 1, and just say it's vesis.com. Save, file save, save all, so that your CSS is also saved. Going to go to the file management and put this so that it goes to the server, and say yes, and it's gone. I'm going to take this opportunity as well to go to my files, find my main index, index.html at the very beginning, and I'm going to add assignment 5. After assignment 5, I'll press enter. I'll add an indent to the right so that I can put in site 1. And for site 1, I'll highlight and make a link to go directly to site 1. I'm going to publish this to my page by saying yes to all and yes. I'll say yes since I know that was my latest one. I can close index.html and go to my page and see what's going on. And then go to my page and reload. There's site 1. I'll click on that. And we can't see anything because we only have the structure. The way that these assignments get graded is by me going into the source, looking at the source, checking out that all your stuff is there, all your classes and all your articles, and that when I link to the CSS, the same thing happens. And that wraps up the recreation of the structure for this website, thevesses.com. You can use similar techniques to recreate just about any structure online and build your own pages.